In the sleepy town of Willow Creek, Tennessee, the Second Chance Animal Shelter was a modest brick building tucked between a diner and a hardware store. It wasn't much to look at, just a few kennels, a cramped office, and a small aviary in the back. But for the stray dogs, cats, and the occasional bird, it was a lifeline. Among the volunteers was Emily Harper, a 28-year-old barista with a soft spot for broken things. She'd been coming every Saturday for 3 years, cleaning cages and whispering to the animals like they could spill their secrets if she listened hard enough. That's how she first noticed the parrot. He wasn't like the other birds they'd housed, cockatiels that chirped at dawn or budgies that fluttered nervously when you got too close. This one was a gray African parrot, his feathers dulled by time, his beak chipped like he'd been gnawing at something unforgiving. They called him Smokey, a name slapped on by the shelter manager, Linda, because of his ashy plumage. But Smokey didn't squawk for treats or mimic the radio like a normal parrot. Every night, as the clock ticked past midnight, he'd start his eerie ritual, a low, guttural cry that turned into words, human names, shouted into the dark. "Sarah," he'd scream, his voice cutting through the shelter stillness. "Tommy, where are you?" Over and over, a desperate roll call that sent shivers down Emily's spine the first time she stayed late to finish paperwork. She tried to laugh it off, parrot's mimic, right? Maybe some old owner taught him a trick. But there was something in the way he said it, a raw edge that wasn't playful or mechanical. It sounded like grief. "Linda, you ever hear him do that?" Emily asked one morning, sipping burnt coffee in the office. Linda, a wiry woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense ponytail, shrugged. "He's been like that since he got here 6 months ago. Guy who dropped him off said he found him in a foreclosed house down on Maple Street. No idea who owned him. Probably just lonely." "Lonely?" Emily raised an eyebrow. "He's yelling like he's calling for someone." Linda snorted. "You're reading too much into it, Em. He's a bird, not a ghost story." But Emily couldn't shake it. That night, she volunteered to lock up, lingering by Smokey's cage with her phone's flashlight casting jittery shadows. His beady eyes locked onto hers, unblinking, and then it started again. "Sarah. Tommy." A pause, then a new one. "Maggie." The names tumbled out like a plea, and Emily's chest tightened. She didn't know why, but she whispered back, "Who are you looking for, buddy?" Smokey tilted his head, silent for a moment, then let out a sound she hadn't heard before, a soft, broken sob, like a child who'd given up hope. Emily stumbled back, her breath catching. She wasn't imagining it. This wasn't just mimicry. Something was wrong with this bird, something deeper than hunger or boredom. The next day, she cornered Dr. Bennett, the shelter's part-time vet, as he checked a litter of kittens. He was a lanky man with graying hair and a habit of humming old country tunes under his breath. "Doc, you ever seen a parrot cry like that?" she asked, describing the night before. Dr. Bennett frowned, setting down a kitten mid-purr. "Cry? Parrots don't cry, Emily. They mimic emotions, sure, but actual tears? That's not their anatomy." "It wasn't tears," Emily said, her voice low. "It was. I don't know, a sound. Like he's hurting." He rubbed his chin, skeptical but curious. "Could be stress. African Greys are smart, smarter than most dogs. If he's been through something rough, maybe he's acting it out." "Where'd he come from again?" "Maple Street. Some abandoned house." Dr. Bennett's eyes narrowed. "Maple Street, huh? That's over by the old Miller place. Been empty since that family disappeared years back. Weird story, cops never figured out what happened." Emily froze. "Disappeared?" "Yeah. Parents and 2 kids, gone overnight. House just sat there till the bank took it." "You think your bird's from there?" "I don't know," she muttered, but her mind was already racing. Smokey's names, Sarah, Tommy, Maggie, suddenly felt heavier, like clues she hadn't meant to stumble on. That night, as his cries echoed again, Emily made a decision. She wasn't just a volunteer anymore. She was going to find out who Smokey was screaming for and why. The next morning, Emily couldn't shake the chill from Dr. Bennett's words. The Miller family, gone overnight, a mystery that lingered like fog over Willow Creek. She'd grown up hearing whispers about it. A quiet couple, 2 kids, and then nothing. No bodies, no note, just an empty house left to rot. Now Smokey's cries felt like a tether pulling her toward that past, and she couldn't let it go. After her shift at the diner, she drove to the library, a squat building with flickering fluorescent lights and shelves that smelled of mildew. Miss Clara, the librarian who'd been there since the Nixon era, barely looked up from her crossword as Emily approached. Need something, hon? Clara asked, penciling in a 5-letter word for regret. Old newspapers, Emily said. Anything on the Miller family, from Maple Street. Early 2000s. Clara's pencil paused. The Millers? That's a ghost story around here. Why you digging that up? Emily hesitated. Just curious. Clara gave her a long look, then shuffled to the back, returning with a dusty box of microfilm. Knock yourself out. But don't say I didn't warn you. Folks don't like that tale stirred up. For hours, Emily scrolled through grainy headlines. June 12, 2004. Local family vanishes without a trace. The article was sparse. John and Ellen Miller, their daughter Sarah, 10, and son Tommy, 6, last seen at a church picnic. No signs of struggle, no car missing, just a half-eaten casserole left on the counter. Theories swirled, runaway parents, a cult, even aliens if you believe the tabloids. But one detail caught her eye. A photo of the family on their porch, and perched on Sarah's shoulder was a gray parrot. Emily's heart thudded. Smokey, she whispered, tracing the blurry image. It had to be him. The chipped beak, the tilt of his head, it matched. But how had he ended up alone in that house for years? She printed the article and headed to Maple Street that evening, the sun dipping low over the Tennessee hills. The Miller house was a skeleton of its former self, peeling paint, shattered windows, and a foreclosed sign dangling by one nail. Emily parked across the street, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. She wasn't sure what she expected to find, but sitting there felt like waiting for a ghost to knock. That's when she saw it. A flicker of movement in the upstairs window. A shadow, quick and human-shaped, before it vanished. Her breath hitched. Okay, Em, you're losing it, she muttered, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped onto the overgrown lawn, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. The front door creaked open with a push. No lock, no resistance. Inside, the house was a tomb of forgotten things, a tipped-over couch, a child's shoe, a calendar still pinned to June 2004. Emily's flashlight beam danced across the walls, landing on a staircase coated in dust. She climbed, each step groaning under her weight, until she reached the second floor. In what must have been a kid's room, pink wallpaper peeling like old skin, she found it. A birdcage, rusted and empty, sitting in the corner. Scattered around it were feathers, gray and brittle, and a small notebook, its cover stained with something dark. Emily knelt, her pulse racing, and opened it. The handwriting was childish, wobbly, Smokey's favorite words, Sarah, Tommy, Maggie. He says them when he's scared. Maggie, Emily murmured. That name again. The article hadn't mentioned a Maggie, no third kid, no relative. Who was she? A sudden thud downstairs snapped her out of it. She froze, clutching the notebook, as footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoed through the house. Someone was there. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light, someone real. Her mouth went dry. She'd come looking for answers, but now she wondered if she'd walked into something she couldn't walk out of. Emily, a voice called, rough but familiar. She exhaled sharply. It was Dr. Bennett. Relief flooded her, followed by confusion. Doc? What are you doing here? She shouted, hurrying down the stairs. He stood in the living room, flashlight in hand, his face pale. Saw your car outside, he said. Thought you might be in over your head. This place, it's not safe. You know something, don't you? Emily pressed, holding up the notebook. Smokey's tied to this family. Sarah, Tommy, and who's Maggie? Dr. Bennett's jaw tightened. I didn't want to say it at the shelter, but Maggie was their dog. A little mutt they adored. When they vanished, folks assumed she ran off. But if Smokey's calling her name too? Emily's mind spun. A parrot mourning a family and their pet? It didn't add up. Not yet. But before she could ask more, a sharp, piercing sound cut through the night, a scream, unmistakably Smokey's, coming from the shelter a mile away. He knows, Emily whispered, her skin prickling. He knows I'm here. Emily and Dr. Bennett raced back to Second Chance Shelter, the parrot's distant screams echoing in their ears like a siren pulling them through the dark. The Tennessee night was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin and made every breath feel heavy. Emily's mind churned. Smokey's cries, the notebook, Maggie the dog. It was a puzzle with too many missing pieces, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the house on Maple Street had been watching her. When they burst through the shelter's back door, Smokey was thrashing in his cage, feathers flying as he shrieked, "Sarah! Tommy! Maggie!" His voice was hoarse, almost human, and the other animals were restless. Dogs whining, cats pacing. Linda was already there, her arms crossed, her face a mix of annoyance and worry. "What in God's name is going on?" she snapped. "He's been like this for 20 minutes. Woke me up from a dead sleep." "He knows I was at the house," Emily said, breathless, holding up the notebook. "The Miller's house. Smokey belonged to them, Sarah and Tommy, the kids who disappeared. And Maggie was their dog." Linda's frown deepened. "You're saying this bird's throwing a fit because you played Nancy Drew? Come on, Em. It's not just that." Dr. Bennett cut in, his tone grave. "African greys have incredible memories. They can hold on to sounds, emotions, even trauma for decades. If Smokey's been alone all these years, he might be reliving something bad." "Like what?" Linda asked, but before anyone could answer, Smokey went silent. The sudden quiet was deafening. He perched still, staring at Emily with those unblinking eyes, and then, in a low whisper, said, "Help them." Emily's stomach dropped. "Did he just?" "He did," Dr. Bennett confirmed, stepping closer to the cage. "Smokey, who needs help?" The parrot tilted his head, then repeated, "Help them," softer this time, like a plea fading into the wind. Emily's hand shook as she pulled out the newspaper article from her bag and laid it on the table. Sarah and Tommy vanished with their parents in 2004. No trace, no leads. But Smokey's still here, calling their names. And Maggie's. What if he saw something? Linda rubbed her temples. "You're telling me this bird's a witness to a cold case? That's a stretch, even for you." "Maybe," Emily admitted. "But I found this in the house." She opened the notebook to the page with the childish scrawl. Sarah wrote it. "Smokey says those names when he's scared." "What scared him, Linda? What's he trying to tell us?" Dr. Bennett took the notebook, his brow furrowing. "There's more here," he said, flipping a page. The next entry was Messier, ink smudged. "Daddy's mad. Smokey won't stop talking. He saw the man." Below it, a crude drawing, a stick figure with a hat, holding something long and thin. A shovel? A gun? "The man," Emily echoed. "What man?" Before anyone could speculate, a sharp rap at the shelter's front door made them jump. It was past 11 p.m. No one should have been there. Linda grabbed a broom like it was a weapon and marched to the entrance, peering through the glass. "Who's out there?" A voice, gravelly and hesitant, came from the other side. "Name's Ray. Ray Cutler. I heard the bird from the road. Used to live around here. Thought I recognized that scream." Linda unlocked the door. And in stepped an older man, maybe 60, with a weathered face and a trucker hat pulled low. His hands fidgeted in his pockets as he glanced at Smokey. "That's him, all right. Belonged to the Millers. Damn thing never shut up." "You knew them?" Emily asked, stepping forward. Ray nodded slowly. "Lived 2 houses down. John Miller, good guy, mechanic. Ellen was sweet, made killer pies. Kids were always running around with that mutt, Maggie. Then one night, they were just gone. Cops asked questions, but I didn't have much to say. Figured they skipped town. But Smokey stayed." Emily pressed. "Why?" Ray's eyes darted to the floor. "Dunno. House was locked up tight after they left. Didn't think anything was still inside till some guy found that bird a while back. Guess he'd been living off scraps or something." Dr. Bennett crossed his arms. "Ray, you ever see a stranger around their place? Someone the kids might have drawn?" Ray stiffened, then shrugged. "Maybe. There was this fella, handyman type. Fixed up houses around town. Saw him talking to John once or twice. Wore a hat, carried a toolbox. Didn't think much of it." Emily's pulse quickened. "The drawing, the man with the hat. Did he have a name?" "Think it was Carl. Carl something. Long gone now, probably." Ray shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I just came to see the bird. Didn't mean to stir up old ghosts." But as he turned to leave, Smokey let out a piercing screech. "Carl," and flapped wildly, knocking his water dish to the floor. Ray froze, his face draining of color. "Guess he remembers," Dr. Bennett said quietly. Emily stared at the parrot, then at Ray. "What did Carl do, Ray? What does Smokey know?" Ray didn't answer. He bolted for the door, leaving it swinging in the night air. Emily's heart pounded. The mystery wasn't just a cold case anymore. It was alive, and it was running. Emily stood in the shelter's doorway, the cool night air rushing in where Ray had fled. Her mind raced. Carl. Smokey had screamed his name like it was a curse, and Ray's reaction confirmed it wasn't random. Whoever this Carl was, he was a piece of the puzzle, and she wasn't about to let him slip away like a shadow in the dark. Ray knew more than he let on, she said, turning to Dr. Bennett and Linda. He ran the second, Smokey, said Carl. Linda leaned the broom against the wall, her skepticism cracking. Okay, I'll bite. This is getting weird. You think this Carl guy's tied to the Millers disappearing? Maybe, Dr. Bennett said, his voice steady but tense. Smokey's not just parroting words, he's reacting. That bird's been carrying something heavy for 20 years. Emily grabbed her keys. I'm going after Ray. He lives nearby, right? He said he used to be on Maple Street. Hold up, Linda protested. It's midnight, Em. You don't even know where he's at now. 2 houses down from the Millers, Emily shot back. He said it himself. I'll figure it out. Before they could stop her, she was out the door, the shelter's fluorescent lights fading behind her. The drive back to Maple Street felt longer this time, the road winding through skeletal trees under a moonless sky. Emily's headlights caught the Miller house first, still eerie, still silent, then swept to the neighboring properties. 2 houses down was a squat ranch-style home, its porch sagging and a rusted pickup parked out front. Ray's truck. She killed the engine and stepped out, her boots crunching on gravel. The house was dark, but a faint glow flickered through a side window. Someone was awake. Emily knocked, her breath fogging in the chill. No answer. She knocked harder. Ray, it's Emily from the shelter. We need to talk. A shuffle inside. Then the door creaked open just enough for Ray's face to peer out, his eyes wild. Go home, girl. You're messing with stuff you don't understand. Smokey understands, she said, holding his gaze. He said, Carl. You know who that is. Tell me. Ray's jaw clenched, and for a moment, she thought he'd slam the door. But then he sighed, a defeated sound, and stepped aside. Fine. Come in. But you ain't gonna like it. The living room smelled of stale beer and cigarette smoke, cluttered with old furniture and stacks of yellowed newspapers. Ray sank into a recliner, rubbing his hands over his face. Carl Hensley. That's who he was. Handyman, drifter, worked odd jobs around town. John hired him to fix their roof a week before they vanished. And Emily pressed, sitting on the edge of a couch that creaked under her weight. And he was trouble, Ray muttered. Had a temper. I saw him yelling at John once, something about money. John looked scared, but he brushed it off when I asked. Then, couple days later, they were gone. Carl, too. Never saw him again. Emily pulled out the notebook, showing him Sarah's drawing. This him? The man with the hat? Ray squinted, then nodded slowly. Could be. He wore a cap like that. Always carried a shovel in his truck. Said it was for digging foundations. A chill ran down Emily's spine. Smokey saw him. Sarah wrote it. He saw the man. What if Carl did something to them? Ray shook his head. I don't know, all right? I told the cops what I saw. Nothing stuck. No evidence, no bodies. Just rumors. But Smokey's not a rumor, Emily said. He's screaming their names every night. He's begging for help. Ray looked away, his voice dropping. There's something else. Night they disappeared, I heard digging. Out back, near the Miller's yard. Thought it was Carl finishing a job late. Never checked. Emily's heart stopped. Digging? Yeah, Ray whispered. Never told anyone. Didn't want to believe it. She was on her feet before he finished, flashlight in hand. Show me. Ray hesitated, then grabbed a coat and led her outside, the night swallowing them as they crossed his yard to the overgrown lot behind the Miller house. The ground was uneven, dotted with weeds and rocks, but Ray pointed to a spot near an old oak. There. That's where I heard it. Emily shone her light on the earth. It looked undisturbed, too perfect, almost, like it had been smoothed over years ago. She knelt, brushing dirt aside with her hands, her pulse hammering. Then her fingers hit something hard. Metal. She dug faster, uncovering a rusted dog tag, the name Maggie etched into it. Oh my God, she breathed, holding it up. Ray stepped back, his face ashen. That's their dog, he stammered. Maggie. Emily's mind raced. Maggie was buried here, but what about the family? She stood, turning to Ray. We need to call the police. Now. Before he could answer, a low growl cut through the silence, not from the shelter, not from Smokey, but from the shadows beyond the tree. A figure stepped into the faint beam of her flashlight, an older man, grizzled and hunched, wearing a faded cap. His eyes glinted with something cold, and in his hand was a shovel, its blade caked with fresh dirt. Should have left it alone, he rasped, his voice like gravel. Just like Ray should have. Emily's blood turned to ice. Carl. He didn't answer, just raised the shovel and swung. Parrot from the shelter screamed names at night, and the volunteers sobbed hearing one of them. Part 5. The Names We Carry. Emily dove to the side as the shovel sliced through the air, its edge missing her by inches. She hit the ground hard, dirt stinging her palms, and scrambled back as Carl loomed over her, his face twisted with a fury that had festered for decades. Ray shouted something incoherent and bolted toward his house, leaving her alone with the man who'd haunted Smokey's cries. "Carl, stop," Emily yelled, clutching Maggie's dog tag like a lifeline. "I know what you did to the Millers, to Maggie." Smokey saw it. Carl froze, the shovel trembling in his grip. His eyes darted to the tag, then back to her, wild and unhinged. "That damn bird," he snarled. "Should have wrung its neck back then." "Why?" Emily demanded, her voice shaking but firm. "Why'd you do it?" He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. "John owed me money. Said he'd pay after the roof job, but he lied. Kept stalling. I went over that night to settle it. Things got out of hand." "Out of hand?" Emily's stomach churned. "You killed them. A whole family. They wouldn't shut up." Carl snapped, screaming, begging. Even the dog wouldn't stop barking. Had to make it quiet. He gestured to the ground with the shovel. "Buried him right here. Thought I'd gotten away clean, till that bird started talking again." Emily's heart broke for Smokey, trapped in that house, calling for his family all those years. But she had no time to grieve. Carl lunged again, and she rolled away, grabbing a rock and hurling it at his chest. It hit with a dull thud, enough to stagger him, and she sprinted toward the Miller house, her breath ragged. She burst through the back door, slamming it shut and shoving a chair under the knob. Her phone, where was it? In her car. She cursed under her breath, hearing Carl's boots crunching outside. Then, a distant wail pierced the night's silence. Ray must have called the cops. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. The door rattled as Carl pounded against it, though it's splintering. "Open it, girl," he roared. "Ain't no one left to tell." The door buckled, and Emily braced herself. Then headlights flooded the room through the broken windows. Tires screeched, and a voice boomed over a megaphone. "Willow Creek PD. Drop the weapon and step out." Carl cursed, his shadow retreating as the sirens closed in. Emily sank to the floor, her hands trembling, Maggie's tag still clenched in her fist. Minutes later, officers stormed the house, cuffing Carl as he spat threats into the night. Dr. Bennett and Linda arrived soon after, rushing to her side. "You okay?" Dr. Bennett asked, his face pale. Emily nodded, though her chest ached. He confessed. "They're under there, Sarah, Tommy, the parents. Maggie, too." Linda's eyes welled up. "God almighty. That poor bird." The next morning, the lot behind the Miller house swarmed with police and forensic teams. Emily watched from a distance as they dug, her throat tight. One by one, they found them, skeletal remains wrapped in tattered cloth, and beside them, a smaller shape, still wearing a faded collar. Maggie. Smokey had been right all along. Back at the shelter, Emily sat by his cage, her voice soft. "You did it, buddy. You helped them. They're free now." Smokey tilted his head, silent for the first time in days. Then, in a quiet, clear tone, he said, "Thank you." Tears streamed down Emily's face, not from fear, but from the weight of it all. She reached through the bars, and he nudged her finger with his beak, a gentle touch that felt like closure. Weeks later, Carl's trial gripped Willow Creek. His confession, paired with the evidence, sealed his fate, life without parole. The Millers were laid to rest properly, their story no longer a whisper, but a memory honored in the town's quiet cemetery. Smokey became a local legend, though Emily refused every news crew that came knocking. He wasn't a spectacle. He was family. She adopted him that spring, bringing him to her small apartment above the diner. The nightmares faded for both of them. Smokey still talked, but the names were gone, replaced by bits of songs from the radio or Emily's laughter. One evening, as she sipped tea on her couch, he hopped onto her shoulder and murmured, "Home." Emily smiled, her eyes misty. "Yeah, buddy. We're home." Looking out her window at the Tennessee hills, she thought about the names we carry, the ones we lose, the ones we save. Smokey had held on to his family's voices when no one else could, a tiny soul shouting into the void until someone listened. Maybe that's what love is, she mused, a sound that doesn't fade, no matter how long the night. And in the end, it was enough.